Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Sean Treadway, and today we're going to be talking about this little guy. Oh yeah. So this is the PICO Dolly. It is a tabletop dolly for your camera that allows you to get all sorts of really cool slider dolly shots on anything that's nice and smooth. And smooth it needs to be for this to work properly, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But let's talk some specs. This guy, made of aluminum, which keeps it lightweight, but it keeps it really strong and sturdy. I've kept up to, I think, probably about 10 pounds on this thing, and it still worked. I probably wouldn't do much more than that, just because it's harder to control, but you could probably do more. So if you had a red, you might be able to run it on this thing, but I'd probably recommend getting something a little bigger for that. This is mostly made for small DSLRs, mirrorless cameras, and cell phones. It actually comes with cell phone attachments, which I'll show you in a little bit. Now, one of the coolest features of the PICO Dolly is that both the front and back axles rotate. So you can get curved shots, you can get full 360 circle shots, you can do whatever you want. It allows for a lot of customized shots at really cool angles that you don't normally get with just a straight slider, you know? Unless you have a slider that has a curve to it. But you can have like a gentle curve, or if you wanna, I've had shots where I'll put a product in the middle of a nice table setup, and you can just push your camera and it'll do circles around the product, and you get like a full 360 shot of it. It's actually really cool what you can do with that. But yeah, basically anything you want with just a turn of a knob, you can lock it in. It's really strong. This allows for you to lock in a shot and just repeat it over and over, which is also really nice. You don't have to do that by hand and like maneuver the camera through the shot. You can just set it and just keep doing the same shot over and over until you get it right. One of the other cool features about this product is it comes with really smooth bearings that allows for really smooth shots, and they're silent. Like, listen to this. Nothing. Which doesn't interrupt your audio on a shoot and allows for really crystal clear, smooth shots, if you know what I mean. But again, this has to be on very smooth surfaces. Your shots can be slightly jittery, and you can stabilize that in Premiere, and I'll show you how to do that later if you don't know how already. But the smoother the better with this guy. And that's one of the only real downfalls that I've come up with this thing. Let's get the logo right, there we go. One of the only downfalls with this guy is that it requires a very smooth surface. But luckily in this modern day and age, a lot of surfaces are really smooth. One thing you really do want to be careful of is getting dirt and other gunk in these bearings. They are kind of exposed. So if that does happen, you do want to clean them. And if you go through puddles and dirt and whatever else with it, those can get gunked up, and that will slow down and jitter the movement, which will make it harder for you to get those smooth shots that you want. So you really want to keep those bearings nice and clean and nice and lubricated if need be. Now I use mine a lot, and I use a lot of, or not a lot of, but I do use like a graphite dry lubricant in them whenever they need it, just to keep them nice and smooth for my shots. One of the greatest features though is how small it is. It weighs roughly 1.5 pounds total. That is just the base weight. It doesn't include any of the attachments or whatever you put on it, but it comes completely apart. You just do these little wing nut dealios and the axles come off. So that means you can pack it away in your backpack really easily. Look at that, just comes right off. Packable, nice and small profile. That's something you can't really do with a full-on slider. This thing I keep in my backpack all the time. It just has its own little compartment in my backpack, and anytime I need it, I have a full-on dolly system for my camera, which is amazing. Now, you might be wondering, will this work with my camera? Odds are, yes it will. As long as you don't have a ginormous camera, you'll probably need to get something else for that. This is mostly for DSLRs, mirrorless cameras, and cell phones, like I said before. I've tried stuff up to about like 5 to 10 pounds. I have some big honking lenses for my Sony camera. I have the Sony G Master Series 16 to 35 mil. That thing's big. And a battery grip and my Sony, plus a mic and a light. It gets pretty ridiculous what you can throw on this thing, and it will still hold. But I feel like if you went too heavy, it might be harder to get shots. It might be harder to get it nice and smooth. If you guys have messed around with heavier setups on these things, let me know. I'd recommend keeping it small. A lot of the too has to do with how much clearance you have here. Now, I usually run this with a ball head. I use a couple different ones depending on what I need. The one I really recommend is the Oben little ball head. Really simple. Allows you to throw it on there and get any angle you need. You can point the camera up, you can shift wherever you need, point it forward or point it sideways and get all sorts of different shots. And I'll link that down in the description if you want to check that out. I highly recommend getting that with this, because otherwise you're going to be sitting like way low with your camera and it might not actually fit in this space. So the ball head gets you up above the wheels and you can point it anywhere and shoot however you need. Although I wouldn't recommend going too high with the camera, because that is going to add a lot of shake to your shots. So you want to keep it low, the center of gravity low, and that'll allow you to really keep the camera lens from bouncing around a lot. Now, if you do shoot with a phone, this kit actually comes with a nice little bag. I don't have it anymore, I actually lost it. I've had this thing for a while, but I do have all the attachment arms it comes with. So it comes with a bag and 3 different attachment arms, one being the cell phone clamp. So there's really no excuse not to get all these amazing shots, even if you shoot all your YouTube videos or home videos on your iPhones or your Samsungs or whatever you shoot on. They shoot pretty high quality, so there's no reason not to use it. And like my Samsung G10, whatever, G9, whatever this thing is, has image stabilization built into it. So like, if it is a bumpy surface, you're still getting relatively smooth shots. So if you want to shoot your kid's birthday party and you don't want those static, dad shots, and you want, nice push and pulls on that birthday cake as she's blowing them out in super slow-mo, this would be the thing to get, You'd be the dad of the year if you had this thing, just saying. Or if you are a YouTuber that shoots everything with his phone, his or her phone, and you want just to step up your game for 50 bucks, this thing really increases the production value of your shots, and it's so easy to use and so versatile. There's no reason not to have it in your kit. I take it everywhere, and I highly recommend you do the same. Again, I just want to talk briefly on using this mini dolly versus a slider. Now, sliders will give you very smooth movement every single time. But you only have so much range, and who wants to use like a 3-foot slider and like throw that on their backpack and go walk around town with that thing? You can take this and throw it in your pocket if you really wanted to. It's almost that small, and whip it out and shoot on almost any surface that's flat. And that's basically it. You don't really have to do a whole lot to stabilize the footage. But if you want that crystal clear, really smooth movement every time, I would go with a slider. But if you want the versatility and you want really creative shots, I'd go with this guy. One of the other downsides is that you can't really do time lapses with this. And I know a lot of sliders nowadays will have either attachments or the slider itself is built for time lapses, which allows you to set the pace of the gears in line with your time lapse, and so you get nice big camera movements in your time lapse. Can't really do it with this thing. I'm sure there's a way you can jerry rig it to do that. Maybe do little markers on the desktop and like move the camera to every marker every time you hear a click, but who wants to do that? So that is a downfall of this thing, but it's so nice and handy that you can't really justify not having it. And 50 bucks, it's $50. Like, so many cool shots. Like, I've used him in so many music videos and so many short films that it's ridiculous that it's already basically paid for itself within a few shots. All right, so now that we've talked about all the specs, I want to show you what this thing can really do in the real world. So here's a little B-roll montage of my town, every shot using the PICO Dolly, just to see what I could push and what I could do with it, and what you should be able to expect when you buy this thing. Mess around with it, play with it, see what shots you come up with, and tag me in them. I want to see what you guys come up with if you get this guy. There's a link down in the description. It is an Amazon affiliate link if you want to help me out. Full honesty here, it is an Amazon affiliate link. I make money if you click that link and buy this thing or anything after you click that link, and that helps me out if you want to help me out. But I do actually highly recommend this piece of equipment. I use it all the time, and I want to see what you guys can create with it. And until next time, we will see ya.